Something about this situation just feels unusual. That's the phrase a lot of WNBA fans have been repeating after recent comments from analysts discussing Caitlin Clark and the growing attention surrounding her injury status. One analyst even described the entire situation as peculiar and strange, and suddenly, a routine injury update became one of the biggest talking points in women's basketball. Now, to be clear right from the start, there is no confirmed controversy involving Caitlin Clark's injury. There is no evidence of wrongdoing, and no verified report suggesting anything improper is happening behind the scenes. But according to recent discussions across sports media and social platforms, many people are questioning why there seems to be so much uncertainty surrounding the timeline, the communication, and the handling of the situation overall. And that's what makes this conversation interesting. Because this isn't just about one player missing games. It's about the pressure surrounding the biggest star in the WNBA, the expectations placed on the league, and how every single update involving Caitlin Clark instantly becomes national sports news. Over the last year, Clark has transformed into one of the most talked about athletes in basketball. Ratings jumped. Arenas sold out. Television numbers exploded. Even casual sports fans, who normally don't watch the WNBA, suddenly started following the league. So when someone with that level of influence gets injured, every detail becomes magnified. And recently, several analysts and commentators have started openly discussing how unusual the situation feels. Some fans believe the concern is being overblown. Others think there are legitimate questions worth discussing. And somewhere in the middle is the reality that injuries in professional sports are often far more complicated than people realize. So what exactly sparked this conversation? Reports suggest that the discussion intensified after multiple updates surrounding Clark's recovery appeared vague or difficult to interpret. Analysts on television and podcasts began debating whether the public messaging around her condition was clear enough. One commentator reportedly described the situation as peculiar because there didn't seem to be a straightforward timeline that fans could easily understand. Again, that doesn't automatically mean something suspicious is happening. Sports injuries are unpredictable. Recovery schedules change constantly. Teams are often intentionally cautious with franchise players. But in today's media environment, uncertainty tends to create speculation. And when the player involved is Caitlin Clark, speculation spreads incredibly fast. Part of the reason this story gained traction is because Clark occupies a unique position in sports right now. She's not just another rookie or another young star. She became a cultural phenomenon during her college career at University of Iowa, breaking scoring records, drawing historic television audiences, and helping elevate women's basketball into mainstream sports conversation. That attention followed her directly into the WNBA. Every game involving the Indiana Fever suddenly carried enormous visibility. Opposing arenas started selling out. National sports shows discussed regular season WNBA games with unprecedented frequency. And with that visibility came enormous pressure, not just on Clark herself, but on the entire organization around her. So when she misses time, it affects more than one team's lineup. It affects ticket sales, television ratings, media coverage, league momentum, fan engagement, and whether fair or unfair, people naturally begin analyzing every detail. Some analysts have pointed out that this level of attention can actually complicate injury management. Normally, teams prefer to keep medical timelines flexible. They avoid giving exact return dates because recovery isn't always linear. One week can look promising, and the next week can bring setbacks. That's common in professional sports. But when fans are expecting daily updates about the league's biggest attraction, even cautious medical language can suddenly sound mysterious. And that's where the peculiar narrative really started gaining momentum. Fans online began comparing different reports, interviews, and public statements. Some interpreted the updates as inconsistent. Others defended the organization, arguing that people were simply reading too much into normal injury management. According to recent discussions, there are essentially two major camps forming around this story. The first group believes the situation is completely ordinary. Their argument is simple. Injuries happen, recoveries vary, and teams are rightfully careful with valuable players. They point out that rushing athletes back too quickly can create long-term problems, especially for a player expected to carry enormous responsibilities for years. Caution makes sense. And honestly, that perspective is reasonable. Professional sports history is full of examples where teams push stars back too soon, only for injuries to worsen. Fans often demand quick returns in the moment, but organizations usually have to think long-term. The Fever aren't just managing one game or 1 week. They're managing the future of their franchise. But the second group sees things differently. Some fans and commentators believe the communication around Clark's status has lacked clarity. They argue that because Clark is such a central figure to the league, transparency becomes even more important. These fans aren't necessarily accusing anyone of dishonesty, but they do think the public confusion opened the door for speculation. And that's the difficult balance modern sports organizations face. If teams say too little, fans assume something is being hidden. If they say too much, every small detail becomes dissected online. Meanwhile, Clark herself has largely remained composed throughout the entire situation. Publicly, she has continued presenting a calm and professional attitude, which many supporters have praised. Despite the non-stop attention surrounding her career, she's consistently avoided escalating controversy or fueling speculation. That's an important point in this entire discussion. A lot of the current conversation isn't actually coming from Clark. It's coming from media personalities, analysts, fans, and the broader sports ecosystem reacting to the uncertainties surrounding a superstar athlete. And honestly, this reflects something much larger about sports culture today. Modern athletes live under a microscope unlike anything previous generations experienced. Every facial expression gets analyzed. Every sideline appearance becomes a headline. Every injury update turns into debate content for television, podcasts, YouTube channels, and social media. In Clark's case, the spotlight is even brighter because she represents such a major turning point for women's basketball. Some longtime WNBA fans have mixed feelings about the attention. On one hand, Clark's popularity has undeniably helped increase visibility for the league. On the other hand, some people worry that media coverage becomes overly focused on one player at the expense of others. That broader tension has existed throughout much of the season. And it's part of why stories involving Clark often become emotionally charged online. Whenever discussions about her injuries, treatment, officiating, or media attention emerge, debates quickly expand into larger conversations about league culture, fan behavior, and media narratives. We've seen similar reactions involving players like Angel Reese and several other rising stars as well. But this specific situation stands out because it intersects with another important topic: trust between teams, media, and fans. In professional sports, injury reporting has always been somewhat complicated. Teams strategically protect information. Coaches avoid revealing too much to opponents. Medical situations evolve daily. And organizations often use intentionally broad language to maintain flexibility. That's not unique to the WNBA. The NBA, NFL, MLB, and other leagues constantly deal with similar issues. Fans frequently complain about unclear injury reports or uncertain recovery timelines. The difference here is the unprecedented level of attention attached to Caitlin Clark specifically. Because when someone drives this much visibility, even normal uncertainty can feel amplified. Another layer to this conversation involves the business side of sports. Analysts have openly acknowledged that Clark's presence impacts television ratings and attendance numbers in a major way. That's not criticism, it's simply reality. Broadcasters want her games. Networks promote her appearances heavily. Opposing teams benefit financially when she visits their arenas. So when she's unavailable, the impact extends far beyond basketball strategy. Some commentators believe that reality naturally creates additional pressure around public communication. Fans purchasing expensive tickets want to know whether stars will play. Television partners want clarity. The league benefits when its biggest attractions are available. Again, none of this proves anything suspicious. But it does explain why discussions surrounding her injury became such a major media topic so quickly. And interestingly, several analysts have actually criticized the overreaction itself. Some believe sports media may be contributing unnecessarily to speculation by treating routine injury management like a mystery story. They argue that describing the situation as strange can unintentionally fuel conspiracy theories, even when there's no evidence supporting them. That criticism is important too, because sports conversations today often move faster than verified information. One vague comment can instantly become a viral narrative. Fans clip short quotes. Headlines emphasize dramatic wording. Social media amplifies uncertainty. And suddenly a standard recovery process turns into non-stop debate content. We've seen this happen repeatedly across sports. At the same time, though, it's fair for analysts to ask questions about communication. Sports journalism exists partly to seek clarity and context. Discussing whether updates have been sufficiently transparent is not automatically irresponsible. The key difference is how those conversations are framed. Responsible analysis separates confirmed facts from interpretation. For example, it's factual that Clark missed games due to injury concerns. It's factual that analysts publicly discussed the unusual nature of the communication surrounding the situation. It's factual that fans online reacted strongly. But it would be irresponsible to present speculation as proven truth. And that distinction matters enormously, especially on platforms like YouTube, where sensational narratives can spread rapidly. One reason fans remain so emotionally invested is because Clark's rookie season already carried massive expectations before any injury concerns emerged. Many supporters hoped to see her immediately dominate professionally the same way she did in college. Others expected an adjustment period because the WNBA presents a completely different level of physicality and competition. The reality has included both flashes of brilliance and understandable growing pains. Clark has shown elite passing ability, deep shooting range, and the kind of court vision that made her famous at Iowa. But she has also faced physical defenses, intense pressure, and the challenge of adapting to a faster, stronger professional game. That context matters because injuries can interrupt development rhythm, chemistry, and momentum. For young players especially, missed time can be frustrating. Fans want consistency. Teammates need continuity. Coaches want stable rotations. And rookies need experience. So naturally, people are eager to know when Clark will fully return and whether she'll immediately regain rhythm. Another interesting aspect of this conversation is how differently fans interpret the exact same information. Some people view cautious recovery updates as evidence of professionalism. Others interpret them as secrecy. Some think analysts are asking fair questions. Others believe media personalities are manufacturing drama for attention. And honestly, both perspectives contain elements worth considering. Sports media absolutely benefits from high-interest discussions. That's undeniable. Controversy generates clicks, views, and engagement. But at the same time, analyzing unclear public communication is part of legitimate sports commentary. The challenge is maintaining balance. That's why many careful observers continue emphasizing the same point. There is currently no verified evidence suggesting anything improper regarding Caitlin Clark's injury management. What exists instead is uncertainty, speculation, and differing interpretations of how the situation has been communicated publicly. Still, the fact that this conversation exploded so quickly says something important about Clark's influence. Very few athletes can transform a routine injury discussion into a national debate about league transparency, media narratives, and business pressure. That level of attention usually belongs to global superstars. And whether someone loves the attention surrounding Clark or feels exhausted by it, her impact on sports culture is difficult to deny. Fans are reacting because they care deeply about what happens next, not only for Clark personally, but for the direction of the WNBA as a whole. Some supporters worry that excessive scrutiny creates unfair pressure on young athletes. Others believe visibility is ultimately beneficial because it brings more attention and investment into women's basketball. Both ideas can be true simultaneously. In many ways, Clark's career is unfolding during a transformational moment for the sport. The audience is larger. The stakes feel bigger. Media coverage is more intense. And every storyline becomes magnified accordingly. That environment creates opportunities, but also challenges. Even routine sports situations become emotionally charged debates. And perhaps that's the most revealing part of this entire story. The discussion surrounding Clark's injury may say just as much about modern sports media and fan culture as it does about the injury itself. Because underneath all the speculation is a broader reality. People are deeply invested in this league right now. They're paying attention. They're analyzing details. They're debating narratives. And while that intensity can sometimes create unnecessary drama, it also reflects genuine growth in audience engagement. A few years ago, an injury timeline discussion in the WNBA likely would not have dominated national conversation in this way. Today, it absolutely can. That's significant. As the season continues, the focus will naturally shift back toward basketball performance once Clark fully returns to action consistently. Fans will evaluate how the Fever develop, whether the team can compete for postseason positioning, and how Clark continues adapting to professional defenses. But for now, this injury conversation remains one of the most heavily discussed topics surrounding the league. And depending on who you ask, it's either an example of excessive media overreaction, or a reasonable discussion about communication and transparency involving the league's most high-profile player. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. Because sports are emotional, fans become attached to stars. Media narratives evolve quickly, and uncertainty almost always creates speculation. What matters most is separating facts from assumptions. The confirmed reality is that Caitlin Clark dealt with injury concerns that affected her availability. Analysts publicly questioned aspects of the communication surrounding the situation. Fans reacted strongly across social media and sports platforms. And the broader conversation reflects the enormous spotlight currently surrounding the WNBA. Everything beyond that enters the realm of interpretation. So now the question becomes, as women's basketball continues growing at this unprecedented pace, can the league balance superstar attention, media pressure, and fan expectations without every situation turning into a controversy? Or is this simply the new reality when one athlete becomes one of the biggest names in all of sports?